What's up, everybody? We're back on Thinking Outside the Box with my co-host Bernie and some really good friends, sometimes enemies of mine.
Frenemies.
Depends on the day.
Depends on what day of the week.
Frenemies.
Before we get started, can I just say, Bernie, your hair looks amazing.
Why don't you tell me what you said about my hair?
Oh, it looks terrible.
I love your hat, too.
Thank you.
I love your hat.
There's a lot of positioning going on.
There's totally, I can see it right now. Kevin Kaufman and Fred Weaver, thanks for driving all the way to the side of town to hang out with us for an hour.
This was a hike. I just stopped and charged on my way over here. Yeah, like, seriously. And I woke up with a full charge. So.
And that was just to get you going, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we gotta start with our story, like where we met, because this one's always funny how we each remember it. So,
Which version are
You mean
talking
which
about?
version you
tell,
remember?
why don't you tell yours?
Oh, you mean the truth?
The
All
truth.
right.
The truth.
So it's 2008. It's like, man, it's probably February or March of 2008. And I've got a buyer. I don't know why I had a buyer. I had a buyer because it's a referral from a friend. And
Because you're a real estate agent at the time.
Because at that time,
well,
I'm
at
a
least
real estate
pretending to
agent
be.
of like less than a year. And I call on one of your listings on Burning
Tree.
And I leave you this voicemail like, hey, blah, 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 have you done this, and this, and this? Because it's a short sale listing. And at the time, like, Fred and I are really just diving into short sales, like, full time. That's all we're doing. And so we're in the throes of learning what that process is really like. So I ask you all these questions over your voicemail, which is probably a 3-minute voicemail. And
That's popular.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Listing agents love 3-minute voicemails from buyer's agents.
The good news is you didn't start off. Do you know who I am? Do you know how many transactions I did last year?
Because the answer was 6. Because I just got my license. And so I remember you called me back and left me a voicemail and you're like, dude, I don't know the answer to any of those questions, but clearly you know what that is. So if your buyers want this house, you should just negotiate it with the bank. I'll fast forward to the punchline, which is we got an approval after fighting for months. It was August 2008. We were in Austin. I'll never forget this. And my buyers literally backed out on day of closing.
Jeez.
Which, by the way, would have been the only closing we had in
August of 2008.
Here's the funny part. I don't even know if you know this. So him and I are at Keller Williams Mega Camp.
Right.
First time we've ever gone to that. You remember, obviously I know that you know what was going on in 2008, but so that month, like I bought our plane tickets and made our hotel reservation, and literally American Express dropped my credit limit. That you know how you don't have a credit limit with American
Right.
Express? Well, they dropped it to whatever my balance was that day.
Oh, jeez.
And so I literally we couldn't spend another dollar. I think Fred had $7. I might have had $27 in my bank account.
I had 31.
I mean, it was like we were down and out.
Those are the good old days.
Quite literally survived that trip on gift cards. We had found gift cards in a desk drawer, like the American Express, like $50 gift cards. We found a stack of them that we had thought somebody mailed out for us. They didn't mail them out. That's how we ate on that trip in Austin that year. And so then to get the news while we're there, we already have no money. We're already spending money we don't have to be there. And then my buyers back out the day of closing while we're there.
How did that make you feel, Steve?
I'm pretty sure, like, at the same time, we had just been foreclosed on, and I was really hoping for that closing as well. So I'm pretty sure we were all in the same pile of shit
Yes.
at that time. And but it's interesting because when he made that call, and I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, well, if there's a chance they can get to the finish line, like, I'll give it to them. I mean, they were like the experts in it, supposedly. I didn't know who they were. I'm like, here, knock yourself out. And that was kind of the start of it. And then, you know, for me, I had gotten so entrenched in the REOs. So when I had clients needed short sales, I just passed them on to Fred and Kevin. I'm like, here, you guys.
That's right, because you ended up doing REOs
Yeah.
like within the next year, maybe not even that long, maybe 6 months or something.
It was end of 08, beginning of 09 is when I started doing them.
Fannie Mae account?
Yeah. Well, I remember because that, like, after that time, despite the foreclosure, we had started like going to lunch fairly regularly together. And I remember you talking about your broker at the time. I think her name was Sandy. Called you in one day and you're like, hey, I need you to take one of these REO accounts, basically.
But what was cool about it was like to not have the ego. Like even though I had been in the business for 10 years, I'm like, I'm on my own now. I don't have my parents to back me up on things, and I was broke. But I'm like, well, I might as well do this and figure it out and see what works. And it ended up being, 14 years later, here we are still having lunch probably every half a year now, quarter.
Every half year.
For some good burger and beer at lunch.
I'll say it's usually a burger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it'd be cool to hear your guys' story. I mean, a lot of people listening, they may know who you are, but they don't necessarily know the origins of everything.
Go ahead, dude.
Like, how did you guys get together?
We were broke. What more do you want? No, it's a good question.
There's a broke guy. Let's go see if we can be less broke together.
Yeah.
Two broke guys dating.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Tell us about your romance.
We're business partners. Thanks.
Good. Thanks for clarifying that. You have to this day and age.
Yeah. So let's see. 2004, I got licensed and joined Century 21 for the gold jackets.
Nice.
That's right, Kevin.
Nice.
Just for the gold jackets.
He's awesome.
Fast forward a couple years later, I meet this guy maybe in 05, 06, somewhere in that ballpark. I went to school with Kevin's wife all the way back in 3rd grade.
Dang.
3rd grade, junior high, high school, college.
Yeah.
And so she was a little nervous introducing me to him. I mean, you can, for those watching on video, you can see why.
Obviously.
And anyway, we went to dinner one night. I met Kevin for the first time, and I think Trisha got up and went to the bathroom, and we started talking about real estate. You were reading Robert Kiyosaki or something like that, and that just kind of got us off in this real estate tangent, wealth building stuff, etc. I'll let you fill in the gap on kind of when you got licensed, and then pick up the story.
Yeah, if I remember right, that was either, like you said, either 05 or 06. I actually got licensed in May of 07, end of May, June of 07, so 15 years ago.
Incredible timing.
Basically.
Right?
Really good timing. 15 years ago this month.
Right.
And he called me, I don't know, must have been July of 07, and was like, hey, I need your help. And he told me, he literally explained to me what a short sale was, and he's like, I need your help though, because I'm getting married and gonna be out of the country, and apparently blackberries don't work out of the country. Well, now they don't work anyway.
They were not waterproof
I mean,
back
I don't know
then
that
either.
anybody knows what that is, a blackberry.
So he, but here's the kicker. He tells me about it. He's got all these listings. I guess I should fill in the blank. I ended up not going to his broker. I chose Keller Williams' office, and then I guess I recruited him to Keller Williams as well without really knowing it. I was just telling him why I chose this other company.
Right.
So pretty easy
instead of his.
sell. Want to keep more of the money you made last year?
Yeah,
that sounds like
it was
a good
pretty
idea.
easy to sell, and they weren't going to make me wear this gold jacket, so I was like, I'm in. And so he's telling me about, he's got all these listings, and he knows all these people that are underwater, but then he says, after I'm like, yeah, I'll help, he's like, but here's the kicker, I don't actually know if the bank will pay us. He's like, I have no idea if we can even get
I didn't
paid
lead
for
with
doing
that.
this.
Yeah.
But like any new realtor, I said, okay, I'm in,
Yeah.
So,
But you guys,
But that was the opportunity then,
you
too.
grew so fast, and you guys figured things out, and you figured out how to charge for certain things and how to get the banks and how to get things escalated. And I mean, you guys rocked it during that time. You guys were some of the best people out there doing it.
I mean, you guys were making YouTube videos on the subject matter, really early on.
Probably 09.
We should pull one of those out.
I mean,
no,
we really
no, we should not.
Yes,
We totally should.
Garrett, let's find one and put it into this episode.
Find
Did you join
friend-
us on Short Sale Power Hour ever?
No.
As a guest? I
No.
don't recall.
No.
He
I was
had an
invited.
REO account.
I had an REO account.
He had an REO
He
account to
couldn't risk
protect.
that.
He could not protect being
Couldn't risk that.
actually being known, being associated with us. So it's funny. So we're talking one of our favorite bank. I'm not going to say the bank for your own good right now, but the bank name you mentioned just a little while ago.
Yes.
Before we started recording, dude, they threatened serious legal action against Keller Williams. They threatened to pull, and I want to think about the time. This was 2010. They threatened to, number one, never approve a short sale again for any Keller Williams agent in the entire country. And at the time, they had probably 80, 90,000 agents, and to pull every single REO account from every single Keller Williams agent in the entire country if we didn't take down this one video.
You thought banks didn't have feelings.
Where we said something very truthful, did not make a lie, did not say anything, literally said something very truthful about something that they had done to a client of ours, and that was something they legally, if you will, have the right to do because of their terms of service.
Really?
But it's just not a really above board thing to do, but letter of the law, it was legal. And so we made a video about it, and that did
Right of
not go
offset if you
well.
want to go study your...
That did not go well for us or Keller Williams. I'll never forget. I mean, literally head of counsel for that bank and head of the CEO at the time at Keller Williams were on the phone discussing
Never heard that
our
story.
video. Not a fun one to deal with.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the outcome on that?
the outcome was we were in Las Vegas. We had a call from the guy that owned our brokerage, our market center at the time, Jim Dunning, who I'm sure the two of you guys know. And Jim calls us. He's like, guys, the pressure's on me. Like, I love you guys. I know what you're doing, but they're telling me that this video has to come down or I have to sever you by Friday. And it's like Thursday afternoon. And we're out of town teaching a class on short sales. And we basically went down to the hour. We took down the video reluctantly with about an hour or two to go, because when they had put so much pressure on Jim, they said to him, if this video isn't down or you don't sever them from your brokerage by this time on this date, your franchise agreement, you will be cut. You will no longer be a franchisee.
Wow.
So they didn't just put pressure on us, they put pressure on the guy that owned the
You
brokerage.
guys really pissed some people off, didn't you?
It's kind of
We've
crazy.
been known to kick the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Just a couple times.
Few.
But it's kind of bananas to think back in that era, the banks, the leverage that they had, the things that they were doing, some good, some really, really shady, like just bananas. And people think this is a hard market now.
Yeah. I feel like it's harder now
I think
in a
it
lot
is.
of ways.
And
in
it's
a lot of
completely
ways.
different.
Yeah.
Back then there was cause already, so you could go in with a solution because it was really well defined. And now it's kind of, it's a completely different environment.
Well, I don't know how long it'll be till this is out, but you're here we are recording mid-May 2022, and I feel like right now it's a whole lot of like, we were talking about this at lunch yesterday, there's a whole lot of like, what's going on right now in the market. People are unsure. Like, we can all look at the numbers and see what the numbers say, and statistically speaking, it still says very much a seller's market, and it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can also tell that there's a changing, like the temperature has changed, and people are kind of going a little uneasiness. There's a lot of uneasiness in the marketplace.
What are you guys seeing in your business right now with the agents? Because I feel like everybody I'm talking to, they're like 07 again. They're panicking.
I know. It's not the same.
I feel like you talk to our agents probably more than I do about that type of stuff. So,
I think before we talk about how the agents are responding, let's talk about like what's going on. Like,
right.
Our coach said it really well to him a couple weeks ago. Like, unless you've had a real estate license for more than 20 years, like you've never experienced interest rates like actually rising for much more than a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever. Like not a season like we've seen. So for most of us, unless you've been in the business 20 plus years, which even I haven't.
Yeah, I've seen it.
You've seen it, but you saw the back half of it. Like, we're not used to that. So we are used to inventory goes up and down, markets go up and down, but like just the interest rate itself is a new dynamic for probably 90-95% of the market, right?
Yeah.
Easily.
And then how many years now we've been riding just the wave of appreciation, and everything's good and everything goes up in value. So I think there's just a lot of uncertainty, and when people are uncertain, they try to predict what they think is going to happen. And the reality is, like, none of us truly know. Like, we know what's happening right now. We know what's happened over the last 30 days. We know rates have gone up. We know that inventory is going up in the Phoenix market and many other markets across the country. We know that the seller's market is cooling down. But, like, where that stops and where that ends, like, I think that's the piece that people don't know.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that we've been talking about is people are getting really challenged right now. You have to truly believe in, like, home ownership and selling real estate. It's a lot easier to sell real estate when everything goes up, and it's like, cool, I can encourage you. It's like 3% interest rates, and
no big deal.
Your house is going to go up 15 to 30% this year. Like, that's kind of an easy sell.
All day long. People actually joined the circle, and we didn't have to really lure them into it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's not tough to script that one out, right? But now, how do I script out somebody who's considering renting right now and sitting on the sidelines versus buying a home today, and a lot of uncertainty of like, is the market going to go down? What's going to happen to affordability? And so now we're talking like, I got to learn some scripting and some dialogues. I got to find people's motivation, and I got to actually like learn my craft a little bit more.
Skills.
You got to know how the numbers move, right? So you start having better conversations with people around, well, hey, it's going to cost you this much more, but you're going to get this in tax relief, when it comes down to those types of things. And then the agents understanding, like, I had somebody, and I encouraged all my students this morning on my coaching call. It's like, guys, look, go have your lenders run side-by-side comparisons, 20%, 25%, and then throw in a 2 to 3% buy down on rate and see what it changes, right? And these are things that people don't know about. They also, they're not getting into the micro when it comes down to the market, because what's happening is inventory is rising. Well, is it mobile homes that went on the market? Is it like which part of the sector is rising?
Yeah.
And knowing that, yes, rates are rising, but right now jumbo products are still at 4.5%. because jumbos aren't backed by the government, right? So all the conforming loans are the ones that are taking the hit, but there's other options out there. So it's just, that's the thing I'm like.
It's a thirst for knowledge, immersion into what's available, understanding what's happening, and then having the right partners that can walk you through stuff. Because to your point, I think there's a lot of people that are working in this business right now that haven't seen anything like this before. We're in uncharted water, so everybody's freaking trying to find their sea legs. And meanwhile, like, you just need to like find the manual, like seek some knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny. For me, like, this is easier to kind of like stomach or think about on the way. I'm not saying we're going down. That's not a prediction.
Right.
But in this uneasiness of like everything's been so
Right.
good and so on the way trajectory of up. Like I remember when it first started going up after the foreclosures and short sales really started to clear up for, like, I know for us, like that was the hard time. That was like our hardest time in real estate, was like to learn how to go out and win a listing appointment
Yes.
at someone's kitchen table
Yeah.
and not on the phone just because I knew more about
So
short
true.
sales.
Right.
And like that was
pivoted
scarier
big
for me
time,
than
yeah.
this. This is
Yeah.
kind of like, this is almost exciting in a lot of ways of like, cool, there's something that's going to change. Like we're having lunch with a couple agents yesterday. Both of them are, one super experienced. They're both awesome agents. The other one's only been in the business for 2.5, 3 years. He's kicking ass. But we were just talking about the skill set that's required now. Like,
Yeah.
can you imagine having to call your sellers on Monday to give them an update about the market
Right.
and what's going on, and not just to review offers?
Right.
And it was kind of like,
They've never
you
had to
could
do that
see kind of a
before.
light bulb for him of like, oh yeah, I've not actually had to have that conversation about a potential price change or how many showings we had instead of how many offers we have. Like, that's a different conversation, and it's a skill set that a lot of agents, quite frankly, don't have, and
They
they
don't.
haven't had to have for,
Right.
for a number of years.
Right.
And they're going to have to change them quicker, right? I was reading a listing the
Yeah.
other day, right, where it's still like waive everything. It's been on the market 20 days. They're offering a 1% co-broke. And I'm like, you better shift that conversation much
dude.
quicker
Yep.
in this market, or you're going to hinder your sellers in what they're getting out of it.
Yep.
So
Well,
it's just,
I think it's interesting too, like you talk about the pivots in all of your guys' business, and what you did the pivot. Instead of worrying about where it's going, you realize that we got to get to work and figure out what the pivot is. Like you transitioning from that short sale environment to like, oh my God, I have to sit at the kitchen table now. But that's a pivot, and then that was a purposeful like engagement and like, what do we need to learn, as opposed to worried about what's going to happen.
Yeah. You said something about basically kind of not worrying about where it's going.
Well, here's my 2 cents on it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts
Yeah.
on it. And please, you guys have been around like a long time in the industry, but I feel like right now, like my mindset is just kind of, I'm terming it survival. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but it's just like I got to go out and do activities and just keep bringing money in. This is probably not the time to go grow my business necessarily, because there's change and shifting going on. So I'm trying to figure out like where my footing's going to be. But like while it's going on, like
Yeah.
you don't know what the new normal is, right? So I don't know if the new normal shows up 3 months from now, 6
Right.
months from now, 9 months, 12 months. I can see that inventory's rising. I can see that buyer demand's down a little bit, right? I can see that, just some things happening in the market with affordability. So it's like, I just want to go out and like pay the bills and keep doing business. But like mostly I'm looking for like the bigger pivot that I'm going to have to make, but it's too early to even name that today.
Right.
Right. So it's just like stay ready, kind of
Yep.
survive, just keep bringing money in. But again, like, we were talking yesterday, like we went and looked at our expenses last week and this
Yep.
week, right? Like, hey, is there anything we can cut here, right? Not because like business isn't coming in or because we're having like terrible, awful months. We're just trying to prepare for like if it does go really bad, like let's just be aware of
Get
some
ahead
things
of it.
that could get cut, right? And so I just think now it's like sort of preparation, survival a little bit. And when I say survival, I just mean like you're just kind of trying to float with the game right now.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll figure out where to put my solid footing
Right.
whenever I figure out what the new market
get your
is for a
sea
short.
legs.
Yeah, there it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But right now it's just kind of like I don't know, be nimble, kind
Right.
of watch
Manage-
it,
manage the
and
waters.
manage what you can.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it feels very much like, if you go back to it, right? Remember when COVID, right? When they started shutting everything down, right? March of 2019. They start going through that process, or 2020, right?
It's all the same. You're
All three
It's
of
all
us
the
are
same.
respectfully
Yeah.
not
I know.
correcting you.
Right, but that's
Don't you
okay.
ask for
Thanks.
it. We were here
Thanks.
for
That's
everybody.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm used to that. But there was a lot of people that made knee-jerk reactions, right?
Yeah.
They started cutting things. They're freaking out, like, what am I going to do? And I think that's over the last couple of years, and our industry is really good about this, right? Everybody's increasing their lifestyle, their expenses, because things are good and things are easy, but nobody's putting anything in reserves to where they buy time to pivot. right? And we're very well set on our reserves, and I'm okay pivoting. I'm okay if it slows down a little bit, but it's now about how do we have these better conversations, just keep doing what we're doing, right? Without freaking out.
Yeah.
Because if you freak out, you can't have good conversations with your clients.
Right.
And if you start fear-based, it's the thing I keep telling people, you have to go at it. Unlike '08, when that all happened, I was burying my head in the sand. I didn't want to talk to my clients. I was losing everything. So like this time I got to go straight at it and talk about it and get people to understand what they're doing and what the purpose is. And like right now, even the investor community that I'm working with, like we can still get a decent rate, and the rents are starting to rise again because it's going to be cheaper to rent than it is to buy unless somebody gets creative or they understand it. And so I'm just kind of like going back and forth with that preparation that it's still there.
Yeah.
And guess what? I still think markets like this, they create opportunity. You know?
For sure. I'm kind of sitting around waiting for the opportunity too. It's right. Like you say, don't get emotional, don't freak out. Like I enjoy watching. But other people freak out and get emotional because like they're gonna get out of the business, they're gonna go back to their jobs or whatever else. So like part of the survival for me, whatever that time frame is, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, I don't know, but it's just like, let some of that, like, let everybody else go freak out, get out of the business, like, just hang in, right? Because we will look up at some point if things can trend towards a buyer's market, right? Where it's like, cool, now I know what my new normal is and my opportunity is, and there's a lot less competition around me, and there's a lot less certain people, a lot of people that don't have the reserves that I do or whatever else, and now I get to pounce. Right. So I look at it as opportunistic.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of excited for the change.
Yeah.
I forget the guy who said it or whatever, but some quote effectively like, chaos creates opportunity. Like,
all day long.
So when people start freaking out, like that's good. That's good news.
Yeah.
From a purely strategic standpoint, like from a business standpoint, chaos is good.
Yeah.
And some people will have that, chicken little sky is falling. I need to get out now before this happens. And again, it's just being creative. It's thinking outside the box, and it's how can you strategically help people accomplish what they want to accomplish in this market.
Yeah.
What's one of your strengths, man? You're really good at figuring out, like, why are we even having this conversation? What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go? Here's the limitless, or 99 different ways I could get you there. Like, let's talk to them.
Yeah, because as Kevin said, I said no rules in my video yesterday. He's like, your broker should be having a shit fit right now. It was actually specifically to the solution that I did. I had no rules to it.
It was his presentation delivery of it. That's all.
Oh well.
What?
How are you guys like over the years? Like, what does like the mentoring, coaching, training look like? How's that evolved for you guys in terms of your, downline teams, things like that? Because you guys, run a pretty substantial operation.
I think first of all, like we're always committed to learning and being mentored and taught by others. Like so that I think that's something that doesn't change no matter what. So we're always making sure that whatever we have to do to either be in a physical room or in a relationship or in a conversation with somebody's that can help us with our business, our mindset, etc., is something that's never changed. So the only thing that changes are the conversations, the strategies that come out of it. And I don't know. I think we just try to also make sure for the people that look to us to lead them in one way or another, whether it's within our like revenue share group or our community or within our actual sales team, I think we just try to bring the same conversation, right? And have those conversations about reality.
Right.
That's the one thing I have to commend you guys on is just how you've built your network over the years and the things that you've done in your community over the years. It's impressive, right? And I think that's
an empire.
It's an empire. But you guys did something, like I hope you don't mind me saying this, you guys did something that was not norm in the EXP world when you guys came over. You guys built the network and you organically built it, but you didn't go out to recruit. You went out to add value to people and really bring them in, and that's what I saw when you guys were doing that. But a lot of people that had approached me, it was just like a crazy, recruiting thing from that standpoint. I know there's a lot of changes over the years too.
I think that's just our style of sales.
Yeah.
So whether we're recruiting to the brokerage or to our sales team, or if we were selling something else, car wash, whatever.
Right.
I think that's just more of like who we are and our style of it. And it's just a matter of like, hey, this happens to be the thing I'm selling. It's EXP or my team or this coaching program or whatever, right?
Right.
Like that's just the way we approach sales is really just through building real, actual relationships with people.
Yeah.
I still remember when we were working together like a million years ago, but learning how you guys structure, just somebody shows up day one, they go through this. You had like a great, I mean, you
The
literally
training.
had, yes, you
Yeah.
literally had a pamphlet and everything that really showcased like the, looked like Candyland on there.
That's right. The career opportunities guide.
Yeah. Okay, did you just say it? What was it called?
Career opportunities guide, yeah.
I was like, oh, we're playing a board game. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of what it was like.
Back
Yeah.
to what you said though, like what we've done on the brokerage team, whatever side, is, I mean, honestly, what most of us should be doing on the database
All
side
day
with buyers
long.
and sellers and people
Yeah.
that we know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, in one market I might be offering this service, in another market I might be offering this service. Like my services and my offerings are going to
Yeah.
change, but if my value add and my staying in touch and building on the
Right.
relationship is
Yeah.
there, then I can always be kind of changing the, like the sales pitch or the offer
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right.
And I think like we've done that with our database over the years. We weren't as good at it early on. Like we made it out of short sales and transition into
Right.
traditional business.
Right.
I think if we had it all to do over again, we'd do it very differently. But it's kind of the same
Yeah.
way that we've handled, recruiting, so to speak,
Sure.
to grow our team, grow things that we're doing
Yeah.
with EXP Realty, et cetera. Is just like, how do you create the community, bring value, and then, you can
Yeah.
have your offerings from there.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have just done an awesome job
Yeah.
with it over the years.
Well, I feel like too, you guys have always like right now, I've been saying this lately, is a lot of practitioners are like courtesy clerks, like, as opposed to really thinking about what's happening in the market, thinking about what the knowledge is, the solutions, and asking
Yeah.
better questions, right? So many agents now are in a mode of like, somebody says, oh, I'm just going to stay put for now. They're like, oh, okay, have a good day, courtesy clerk, right? As opposed to asking more questions.
Right.
To figure out what they're really trying to accomplish, and then having the ability to really parlay with them on what like being able to share with them the things that are really happening, different ideas, resources. And I feel like you guys have always had that like desire, that grind to like learn and know as much as you can about what's happening.
I think there's just like, if you're actually, doing that, you're asking questions, getting to know people, finding out whatever it is that they want, whether we're talking about buyers and sellers or other real estate agents or fill in the blank with whoever your consumer is.
Right.
If you're actually just approaching it from that person as a person, and you can do something to help them, then help them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And again, regardless of what the offering is, I can help you sell your house. Like I could buy your house from you, or you could come to my brokerage, I could help you grow your business. Fill in the blank with all the different offerings. Like, cool, this is what I think you should do. Here's how I can help you. And some people are going to naturally just find their way over. And I think the real thing for us, like I know in building our business, a lot like having to learn how to become a realtor, as I would call it, like in 2013 and 14, and learning how to be a recruiter, if you will, and grow that business, was combining that with not just asking right questions, but then asking the right questions that people think, and dig deeper to go, hey, maybe this is a better opportunity for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's not. I'm gonna help either way, but maybe you'll be better off because of this, and not just letting it
Yeah.
go. Like you said, not just being the courtesy clerk.
Right. Yeah. Do you guys spend a lot of time still with buyers and sellers, like quote unquote buyers and sellers? Like where's like most of your time spent now as you've grown all the business?
I mean, what year was it? 2015, 2016 that
15.
we both
Yeah.
basically stepped out of the day-to-day of like selling real estate, meeting with clients. So Steve's still, I mean, he's amazing at it. I mean, he has leverage as well, but like there's parts of it that
Well,
he's
that's, I
just
think, a
at,
great
right?
business person is you hire yourself out
Yeah,
of certain roles.
we
based
looked
on
up one
what you
day,
like
and
to do.
not because we were probably the best at it, or not because we had even arrived at the point where we deserved to do that. We just looked at it one day and said, do I want to still be sitting across the kitchen table
Yeah.
with a seller or driving buyers around like 5 years from now? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
It was like, well, then sooner rather than later, we should probably just pull the Band-Aid off, because what happens, we had watched other people, and you watch other business owners, like the further you get in, the harder to pull the Band-Aid off sometimes it is, right? Because
Right.
the bigger the step back. So
Right.
we were doing okay, but it wasn't like we were killing it. We weren't making 7 figures a year. And it was like, okay, well, let's just pull that Band-Aid off now. It's a lot easier
See what happens.
to go backwards right now than it is later. Let's see what
Sure.
happens. Let's see if we can do that.
It's a good perspective.
Yeah, so we're very active with like our database, meaning that like we both have a very, dialed in database that gets mailed to, emailed to, called, etc., right, with different value adds. So business comes in the door, whether it's direct or whether it's referrals. But
That's
him
huge.
and I aren't the ones that are like carrying the business out. And,
Yeah.
I mean, over time, like for anybody listening, it's like, yeah, you're gonna have some people that no longer come to you if they know you're not the one carrying out the business. Like that's gonna happen.
Yep.
But you roll with that punch and you just say, okay, cool, I'm gonna succeed
okay.
in spite of that, because my main objective is I don't want to be doing this long term, so I'm gonna succeed around that, right? So we've just built a business of having a database and having great agents that we can hand the business off to, and being able to really nurture the client on the backside of the transaction once they're in escrow, keeping that really good, and then keeping people coming back for that.
Yeah. How long does it take you to work through that choice? Are you guys pretty decisive and quick? You pivot really quickly, or was it kind of like
we had
time?
we had an actual conversation. Like it was a moment in time that we said. But the thing we were both clear on is we did not want our incomes to be dependent upon sitting at the kitchen table ourselves anymore.
Those are really important moments to realize what you want for yourself in the future.
Yeah, and to Fred's point too, I think it was probably an easier decision to make then because the dollars were less, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like
Smart.
we're in such a great business where we can make a lot of money. Nobody would feel bad for us with the amount of money we were making at that time. But we did say like we're gonna have to just draw a line in the sand eventually. So let's just do it now, and like let it hurt now, so that way we can actually figure it out. Because if what we knew is if we didn't at least try, then we would never figure out how to do it without our involvement. And we just didn't want the type of business. I think many times over the years we've both been like, if our income is going to be solely dependent upon us going and doing it, we're probably going to have to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're both going to have to, we're going to have to find a different business, and we might just
Work for
we
Steve or something.
Yeah, like
I mean,
we would
I don't know.
have been realtors on the
You
side.
guys would be great.
You guys go for
title
title
Yeah,
reps.
sure.
Truthfully,
Title,
yeah.
I don't care.
Truthfully, like we were like, it would have to be a side thing, and it couldn't be the main thing. So we kind of both, I think we both approached it that way of like, I'm not working weekends, I'm not working at night, and so that means it's got to look like this, and which means we're gonna take a step backwards, and we're gonna see if we can
And
make
make
it
the
work.
tweaks along
And if
the
it
way.
doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But we think we can make it work.
I think that's so huge for anybody listening, no matter where they're at in their business, because you guys had conviction with the choices that you wanted to make for what you saw in the future, and a lot of people I think will make that choice, but then they flounder because everything's not going perfectly based on that decision in that moment in time. But the fact that you had conviction in that, and you just kept tweaking along the way, I'm sure, and then you made the decision to step first early. I mean, I think that's a great, opportunity for a lot of people listening to know that have conviction in what you want to accomplish in your business and where you see yourself on the other side of it.
Yeah.
What's the secret to, so many people that I hear like, hey, we're going to partner and we're going to do these things, and you see like the freaking partnership divorce, 6 months, a year in, but you guys have been going on 14 years, right? And
Yeah.
just the friendship, the partnership. I mean, what's really the secret to that success for you guys? I mean, what would you tell people?
Value and appreciate the other person's spouse more than your business partner. I
like how you set that up to almost sound like
I
an
know.
actual.
It's about the partner.
Yeah. I mean, we always jokingly say, like, he likes my wife more than he likes me. I like his wife more
It's
than I
not
like
really that
him.
much of a joke,
Just
so.
don't want to, I don't know. We did a
Dude,
whole couple hours on this topic.
We get asked
Sum it up for us.
We get asked that question a lot. So
I
we
bet.
literally sat down and just like, let's get all of our thoughts out on that. And it took over an hour for sure. Dude, I think at the end of the day, what I would distill it down to is we have somewhat of a common focus or goal, if you will. Not to say that we both have the exact same life goals. They're in alignment enough to where they're in the same direction. We respect each other enough, and there's just not a lot of ego at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
I don't think either one of us really cares that much about who gets credit for something. As long as the deposits are there, like I think we're both pretty okay with it. And because those kind of goals are in a common direction. And I think we're also both really comfortable now. This doesn't happen overnight, but
Sure.
I think we're also both very comfortable in the skill set or that our behavior / actual kind of refined skills bring to the table, and how that enhances what we do together. And I think kind of knowing that, the biggest example I can give is if you were to send me an email, or you send me an email asking something, or you sent it to both of us, and only one of us would reply, because we would know that whatever the takeaway was is in one of our courts, and we're at the point now 14 years later We don't even have to say, hey, do you got that or I
Right.
got that. We just literally know it's a subconscious thing of like, oh, that's Fred's wheelhouse. Like I literally don't even have to respond to the email, or it's my wheelhouse and he doesn't have to respond to the email,
I love it.
and we don't even have to have a conversation about it. But I think a lot of that comes with sitting in the same office. We still do to this day for 14 plus years. We hear each other's conversations, thought process. We kind of always joke about how we just have one conversation that it gets interrupted by meetings and appointments and stuff like, but it kind of just is always going.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I would add, I think everything Kevin said there's factual, accurate. I think that's why it's lasted so long. The one thing, and I may overvalue this, I don't know, but I always like to share this. Like, I think the reason early on it worked is because we got in a car one day and went for a really long drive to sort of hash out how this partnership was going to work and start out and whatever else. And historically, we had both come from another different partnerships where we felt the other partner or partners we were in business with maybe weren't carrying their fair share of the weight,
Yep.
and or we were being undercompensated, whatever, right?
Right.
And so we were like, we're not going to allow that to happen. So
Ever.
how do we how do you defense against that? That I don't like just live off of you, you don't live off
Yeah.
of me. Like what's the defense mechanism for that? So when we started out our partnership, we started out where whoever generated the business got 85% of the income on the piece of business that was generated, and the other partner got 15. But we always split the expenses 50-50. So from the start, we unequally or disproportionately shared the income based on who brought the business in. So it created a scenario by which neither one of us was going to be able to live off the other one. And so like we both had to go to work. Like
That's
what
awesome.
I see in most
Yeah.
partnerships
Nice.
is like at one point in time, one of them is clearly the better lead generator, better rainmaker,
Right.
better, bringing in revenue. And the other one becomes more of the better behind the scenes
Yeah,
administrative one.
operations, yeah.
And the revenue generator typically at one
Resentful.
point looks up a couple years in or a couple months in, it becomes resentful of the other one. Is I could just hire you out for
Right.
50,000, 70,000,
Totally.
100,000
So
instead of
smart.
splitting the business 50-50.
Yep.
And so like our whole thing was like, how do you defense against that? So that's what we did. It didn't stay 85-15 forever. It went to 80-20 and 75.
I mean, it took
25.
it took 3 years to get to
Years.
50-50. But by that time, again, think about that.
Which
how
I
much
think is relatively
how much
quick.
trust is built in 3 years of like we just literally kept inching it like 5% at a time, closer and closer. And the thing was, because we're also competitive and like to argue with each other and stuff like that. So the thing was,
Kevin likes to argue he's better because he likes units. I prefer how much dollars are in your bank account.
Whatever.
So I always won in the dollar category.
You're such an idiot.
He won in the units.
the point was like we literally
man.
what stopped it was like I think at the time we were literally at 55-45, and we're like we are causing extra work for our staff just because we like to compete with each other.
Totally.
We could probably just do this on a spreadsheet. Let's just make it 50-50 and
Yeah.
call it good. So that way it'll be easier for our staff. And
Yeah.
but
And we
it
should
did
mention-
take 3 years.
And we should mention over those 3 years, a lot of business was 50-50 because we
Yeah.
created it together. Like,
Right.
when we went out and started teaching short sale classes and people started referring us transactions, like that
We did that
wasn't an
50-50.
unequal split. That was an equal split.
Right.
That was 50-50. And so eventually that stuff started getting a lot bigger than the individual
Right.
stuff. But I think to get started, the reason it even got to the place where all those other things you mentioned mattered
Maybe-
is we neither one of us could,
I don't know if it was actually splitting the money the way we split it, or if it was just the fact that we were both willing to.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
probably just the
that's-
fact that we're both willing to split it, not the actual splitting of the money, the way we did it, that made it work long term. Because the person that wouldn't even agree to that, like that's a red flag.
Yeah.
That's a red flag
Yeah.
in a partnership, I believe.
Yeah.
And
What has happened in your? Have you guys ever had a moment in your partnership that maybe was tough to get through?
I mean, almost every day, but
have you ever told this guy? Jeez, Bernie. No, we've had tough moments in our business, not in our.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely. We used to joke of like we're not allowed to both have a bad day at the same time because we're both
bad news.
such like strong personalities. If we both are pissed off at the world or at the business one day, like we could shut it down. So
I bet you're pissed off at the world more than he is.
I wouldn't make that bet. But the reality was like, so we would always be like, we had to kind of temper that and like sometimes
Yeah.
purposefully stay away. Like, hey, dude, I'm gonna go home, or you should go home, or something. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
You guys
know
ever
what I
throw
mean?
your flip flops at each other in the office? Shut up over there.
Fred only throws phones, not flip flops.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's my first share of phones negotiating short.
It's the wall. Oh my God.
Why are you wearing tennis shoes?
Yeah, why are you wearing
Because
tennis
2020
shoes,
was
old man?
weird. 2020 was so damn weird that I
You
kept.
have shoes on.
I started wearing tennis shoes 2 years ago. It's still news to people though because I'm old, dude. I kept getting
that's right.
hurt. I just literally kept hurting my feet, and
Now,
finally,
he's a tennis shoe snob, though.
Is
man.
he?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
because number one,
I like it.
I tried like 15 different pair, and I had to.
He's on
find,
Zappos. There's just pair
I
after
had
pair
to
after
try.
pair.
They had to be comfortable and not look dumb. Like that was my criteria, and so it took me a long time, and I landed on a pair, and now I'm a
Now you
snob.
have them in 20 different
I'm a
colors.
snob about maybe. It's
Yeah.
actually like probably only 13 or 14, but yeah. Just listen, dude. Just because I don't have all the same red pair of Converse like you do.
Dude, I'm wearing cowboy boots. What are you talking about? You didn't know I
Today.
changed that
Listen,
out?
I talked to your wife. I know what she gives you for Christmas. So, but yeah, so literally 2020 was weird, and for me, the way it showed up as weird is I started wearing
wearing
shoes for
shoes.
safety reasons. Because I'm old.
Safety reasons.
I mean, I still got a Group 4610 pair of flippers,
Yeah.
flip flops
I'm
on
a
my.
shoe snob.
They're vintage. They should be worth something someday.
We have so much in common.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask this question because it's always been one of those topics at lunch, right? If you go back advice-wise, right? We've gone through, 14 years. What would you have done different as far as like the
Buy more
investment
real
side?
estate.
It's not even close, dude. Buy more real estate. You know, every
It sounded like I cut you off, but I actually held on like 3 extra seconds there.
Give me
Like,
a second. Like more syllables in
I'll give you the nuanced part of that. Like, first of all, you know how many times we left lunch with you where we're like, fuck. Sorry, Sarah, you can edit that out if you have to. I don't know
No,
what-
we have
It's
all
okay.
the time.
It's okay.
So if like we're like we'd literally like, dude, could you tell us about this appointment you went on and then you turned it into this deal and then you did that with it? We're like, and we were so damn focused on making sure our system was what it was and the team was what it was. And if I could change anything, it would just be I would take an extra minute or two a week and look at the deals that literally came through my inbox and just buy one or two of them a year.
Like
Yeah.
$30,000,
Oh my God.
No, 'cause
$50,000,
you're-
even just
$80,000
So
homes.
bananas.
I'll never forget sitting at Taco Surf when my buddy Christian Peter said to me, and like this is like back in 2012. He's like, "Just buy one piece of real estate a year. Just do
Yeah.
that for 20 years, and 20 years you'll be fine." And even like I couldn't even hear that then. So I think there was a lot of advantage to what we chose to focus on and stay like super narrow focused. And then the other side of that is, yeah, and I wish I owned more real estate already. We've been making up for lost time as fast as we can, but the reality is like that would be the one thing I would change, like hands down, not even close.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just-
it is, but it's not right. Like that's really good.
But you can't go back and regret anything that you didn't do.
No.
Because we'd all be really retired if we bought every short sale and every REO that came across our desk back in the day. Because you could have put REOs on freaking credit cards back then and been fine, right? You could have fenced them for 10
Not on
years.
your American
and,
Express.
yeah, not on my no, they shut my money down.
yours, right? I mean, dude,
They're happy to let me spend as much money as I want today.
Right.
But back then I couldn't go over $3,000.
But I was trying to tell
my
somebody that, even right now, you're looking at things and it's not a go jump on anything, but wait for the right opportunity. And even though you might buy one this year that seems to be a little high, right? But you keep on that same path of one a year, one every 2 years. And if an agent in their life of their career, right? So let's say 30 years, if they did one every 2 years, right? They bought 15 homes, right? What would that change for their retirement, their stuff, all the different things. So I was just curious
Or
from
the
you
experience
guys.
they could share with the people they serve.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've said this to us for years, and like a lot of your advice, we've ignored it, and vice versa. But it's like we, as agents, we.
I don't know if, by the way, I don't know if there's a compliment coming or not right now. I have no idea.
Apparently not.
As agents, like we get to see all these opportunities
Right.
right in
Yes.
front of our eyes, and like so, like when Kevin
Yeah.
says, I would have just spent 2 or 3 minutes or whatever you said, looking at the deals that the listings and other opportunities that came across our desk. Like you've been great at that for all these years. Like you've always
Yeah.
been great. You've always looked at it through 2 different lenses. Like,
Right.
hey, is this something I should consider buying, and how do I help this person all at the same
Right.
time? And we just passed up way too many
Yeah.
opportunities.
So if that's something that you guys, wish you would have done better, what's the teaching in your organization now with that?
I think it goes back to what we said earlier, which is we're always trying to stay in rooms where we're learning, and I think we try to do we try to bring the same messages of the lessons that we're learning back down to everybody, whether they're actually on our team, in our building, or sort of in our world. So we talk a lot about being able to buy real estate, anything that we can do like that. First, by being the example and letting them know, like, hey, like having the one-off conversations with people. We're just never going to push anybody into anything ever.
Sure.
But we're always going to have the conversation and be totally open about here's what my strategy is and here's why I think it's the right strategy, at least for me. And if you want more of that or whatever, like we're always open books to help them.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
I mean, you hear this stuff all the time. The thing I kick myself for is like earlier in life, not putting a certain percentage of my income aside and just deciding that was for investments, even if I didn't know what I was going to invest in, and just letting that grow, like in some account I don't touch, at some bank I don't go to, like just that, like that simple of like that's something I will teach other people, teach my kid, etc. Right? It's just like that. No, a certain percentage is always going to investment. Even if you don't know what to buy today, I don't care.
Just put it aside.
Just put the money aside. Yeah, I understand inflation. I understand you get 0% interest. I don't care. Like, it's the habit of putting a certain percentage aside to eventually get into the habit of more regularly buying assets, because things that go up and down.
Again, it's so much easier to do something when you're talking about low dollars, when you're talking about low risk. Like, let's just say, I'm going to say only, but let's say you make $100,000 a year. It's a lot easier to put aside $10,000 a year into an account, even if you don't have an investment identified, than it is once you're making $1 million a year. You start talking about putting 100 out. And here's what's the deal. This has been, I think maybe a lot of people's experience is like when you get to $1 million a year. I think a lot of people like still spend $1 million a year. But if you're like actually aware of that, then the number is it's not like 10%. You're like, first of all, I know the way I feel is like I got a bunch of time to make up for, so it's not like 10%. It's like 40, 50, 60%, right? I don't know why I saw this, but I saw this video with Shaq a few years ago where he was talking about, you know the video I'm talking about, where he was, part of the reason why he wanted to be the Lakers is because of Dr. Buss, the owner of the Lakers at the time before he passed away. He was an extremely wealthy person, like billionaire, and he promised to kind of mentor Shaq business-wise and stuff. And one of the things he said, he's like, the thing is, like, he's like, you're rich. You make I pay you a lot of money to play basketball and, millions and millions of dollars a year. And he's like, if you ever want to be actually wealthy, then you got to take 25% right out of the gate. And like, that's investments and savings. Like, you don't touch that. He's like, but if you really want to get real wealthy like me, like you double that again. And you live off of less than half of what you make. And that's how over time you just get to be, you'll be a billionaire.
And he's an insane business person now, right? All the franchises he owns, the real estate that he owns, all the things, and he's probably still putting money away.
And you could tell like he is too, because he always tells his kid, he always tells his kids, like, you're not rich, I'm rich.
You
guys are just my kids.
Exactly.
Once you're out, you're out.
Well, it's, how old are your kids?
Mine's 5.
7 and 9.
Yeah, you're not far away from it, but the experience that I've had, and just it's so recent over the last couple of months, just realizing how, I hate saying this, how financially illiterate people truly are. Like, you just talk about saving, right? And so I started doing this talk track called Dripping Faucet Fills a Bucket, right? And people don't realize that if you don't do the small drips, right? If you won't save $10 out of 100, you won't save 1,000 out of 10, and you won't save 100 out of 1,000,000 because you've never created the habit. And so watching my boys as they've gotten their jobs and teaching them and all the things, it's been insane to see, they're saving about half of their paycheck and it's going into savings, and we review their financials every week, and just seeing like how that will change the course of their life, and then showing them other things to invest in. Right. So it's kind of fun when you need to go through that.
I would say that's the other thing too, going back, is I wish we would have done, I wish I would have done a financial statement sooner, like a net worth statement.
Oh yeah.
Like with any sort of regular, even if we'd have done one yearly for the last decade, probably would have bought more real estate if we did. Probably would have been like, hey, this goes up if we keep adding.
Real estate.
The more addresses we put in the lines.
Goes down.
This one goes down, it goes up. That's a positive.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to say that, because I've started telling people, like, looking at the real estate is, we're so, and I'd love to get you guys' opinion on this. The market or the industry is so focused on the transaction, the GCI thing, but they leave out some of the important things, like, are you getting your net worth to move every year? right? How is that changing versus just focusing on these two metrics? What are some of the other metrics that you guys are getting, your agents stuff to focus on?
You want to take that first, or?
No, I have no idea how to answer that.
I mean, I'll answer it from myself, which is like literally what I just said about the net worth statement, like just focusing on that alone. And then
I guess the one thing I would add is that, like, we've both joined brokerages in the last couple of years that offer opportunities to put money away, which, like, in the history of real estate brokerages, that wasn't something that was even on the table.
Yeah, you guys were an early adopter of that, right?
Right. So just the habit of, like, putting some of your money aside and maybe watching your company match or offer a discount or what, like, I mean, just the idea of that is pretty revolutionary. So that is one thing that we're always encouraging people, right?
Yeah. And
is like you gotta like why would you not?
It's insane if you like look at it, and we're both at different competitors that do it, but the money that's been given back and awarded for certain things that we do on a daily basis is free money. It's better than some of these 401k matches that people get at their companies, and you're just like, this is dumb.
Yeah. So one of the number one agent at eXp Realty, good friend of ours, he's in our group. He used to be an investment banker prior to real estate, and I mean, I'll never forget on the way over, he literally said, "Well, that's free money." And I was like, okay, well, if Andrew Franklin said it, I'm good. Yeah. Like if his math deduction was that's free money, then I can stop trying to calculate this myself.
Yeah. When you think about how many brokers out there charge franchise fees, like it's got to be 70% of them, 60% of them. As far as agent population lives, at probably 50, 60, 70% of brokerages that do that. So we don't think anything about like paying some like national, international brand 6.9%, whatever, right?
Because of inflation.
Like, we don't think anything of it. Like, we just like, I was essentially 21, like, paid my royalty fee. I was at Keller Williams for 11 years, paid my royalty fee. But then you go over to a brokerage like eXp Realty or Real Brokerage, whatever, where it's like, oh, now I can, like, there's no actual national franchise to pay, a royalty fee to. So it's like, do I want to pay myself a royalty fee? Like, that's how I look at these stock programs. It's like, for years, I was sending this big corporation that did nothing for me, percentage off the top. Now I can send it to myself. Like,
I think
people still struggle with that.
There's a misconception, when it comes down to either one of our brokerages, where when we talk to people about it, that they think they've got to recruit a bunch of people to do whatever it is that we're gaining. But the reality is, if you just look at the ROI on
what you already do,
when you meet your caps and what you're given back. Like, that's simple, right? Yeah. That's the only reason that I came. It was just like simple investment math. Like, well, I'm already paying this, and I don't get anything for it. So I might as well, I own my own building and all the other things. I might as well get something in return for what I do on a daily basis. Everything else is just gravy after that. Yeah. But I think people need to ask themselves a question is, what is my return on investment at the brokerage I'm at? And how is that going to play out in the future?
Yeah.
And is there one?
And is there one?
That's a good question. Wow.
So what are you guys doing now? Like, what are you focused on? What's next?
I think we're focused on maybe just finding out what's next. I don't know if there's anything next other than status quo, like Fred mentioned earlier, even from like what's going on in the market right now, which is continuing to do what is already working, more of that, and trying to stay nimble and aware of the reality of what's actually happening. It's hard for me to think about what's next with anything substantial or concrete, because
just nurture and grow what we already have, increase the number of investments. And for me, like, I think Kevin's pretty close to me. Like, I'm focused on not working very much in June and July. Like, it's nice to be able to get to that point where I can like take some time off, get out of Phoenix where it's deathly hot, and go enjoy time with family, and still be able to maintain the businesses and support the people, because we operate virtually.
Right.
Well, and you guys have a podcast that you've had for a while now, right?
Kevin has a podcast. He put my name on there. It was really
I know.
Nice of him.
I saw that. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the growth of that and launching it, the whys behind it, and you guys have gotten a lot of traction.
So I did it because I wanted to. Like, we talked about it for years. Like, we have a podcast. Like, we thought we had to have this, like what you guys actually have set up here, and we're like, we don't even have anywhere to have this. Much less would we know how to press
like
the right buttons.
9 cameras on me right now, and microphones in places I don't even know where they all are.
And Sarah can
wait till you get up.
Sarah can tell you, like, we're in the room. She's in the office one day and said something to the effect of like, we've always filmed videos, which you referenced earlier, And so at the time we were doing a lot of like 2-3 minute videos every single week and just kind of putting it out there on an educational real estate page. And she said something to the effect of like, if you want, I can just rip the audio off that and that could be a podcast. And I was like, what? She goes, I could take the I go, you mean if I gave you a video file, you could get audio from it? She's like, yeah. And it could be a podcast. And I'm like, I said, so if I use Zoom and I interviewed somebody and you could use that for a podcast? She goes, yeah. I go, I'll be back. We're going to have a podcast.
That's cool.
That was literally it. And for me, it was like an excuse to kind of just drill down with some people of like learning how do they think, what, you know, what's their thought process on it, just different things like that. And so there's been different times where like I think about the growth of it, and normally it's like when I talk to Sarah and she'll be like, hey, what about this or that? I'm like, oh yeah, that's really smart. But the truth of the matter is I like talking to people and like learning how they think and what their thought process is, and then sort of sharing that. I think part of it too is when we were at KW for so long, what we saw after a while is like everybody on stage looks the same, sounds the same, acts the same. They all pay the same amount. They all pay to be on Maps coaching or whatever. There's nothing wrong. All companies do that, right? But what I disliked and I thought was disingenuous was the fact of like everybody literally looked and sounded the same. And so I'm like, there's a lot of other smart people in the industry. What if like let's give them a stage and let's find out how they're winning? Because I think one of the amazing things about our business is there's not one way to do it. There's a ton of different ways to be successful. And so let's find out what some of those ways are, so that way not everybody feels like they have to have the big mega team with the ISA team and all like all the stuff.
They got to be able to find their path.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a different path for everybody. I mean, you grew in different ways than what I did, and I just found my path with what worked, and I stopped looking at what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
Just doesn't sell as well.
I think
Most people like tell me the path.
Yeah.
You know,
What's
versus
the secret?
And then
find my own path.
Find your
right?
own.
Well, and that's what the companies have found is like, tell me the path, and then, oh, by the way, I can sell you the coaching for the path too.
Right.
And this is the only, so when you have a company like that size, I'm not picking on just KW, it's all of the major brands.
It's all, yes.
But it's
just,
a
corporate thing, not even just a real estate thing.
It is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, cool, here's the path. And since you're going to go down that path, because that's the only path we've ever shown you, and that's the only path we're ever going to talk about or write about, here's the path we're going to charge you to coach you about too, so that way we can make sure you're doing the things that we told you to do so you can be successful. And the truth is, there's like maybe 10% of the people in that path should be on that path. There should be more people asking themselves, what kind of business do I want? What do I want it to look like?
Who am I?
Yeah. That was like, I mean, there should be more people going, no, I don't want that. Having the conversation of like, so I'm not going on listing appointment. I have to figure out how to do it this way. Or Steve going, I got to figure out how to incorporate the investment side on here so that way I don't end up the way I saw like the path his dad had, right? Of like helping other people get rich but not himself.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be something for people to think.
Yeah.
And to realize that there's more than one option. And so for us, like I know for me, because he's joking about it, but it is like that's like my baby. Like I'm purposely talking to people that do things differently and don't look the same and act the same that's on stage everywhere.
I love that. I mean, podcasts have become such a great vehicle, right? I mean, it's this like invention that's happened in the last whatever years that lets you kind of have a voice without having anybody tell you can or can't say something. You know, I mean, it's awesome. And I think it's cool too, because I think early on you guys were always so good with videos and education. Like you guys were always putting content out. Like even before people used the word.
That's because they just didn't give a fuck. They just did it.
But I think that's but I love that.
They didn't overproduce it. They didn't do it. They just did it.
I just love it because so many people today overthink every little thing.
I'm one of those.
And you guys were just like, let's just put this out there and see what happens. And sometimes, you know, banks got mad. But for the most part, you didn't overthink the goal of sharing the information wasn't for the ego's sake. The goal of sharing the information was to help people, and you didn't overthink that, which I think is really cool.
How about NLA Live? Is that coming back?
God, you're the second person to ask me in 2 days. Tony McCarty asked me that yesterday.
I was wondering about that too.
We've thought about it. We've been doing a lot of smaller events, like 35, 40 people in a room. I would say not willing to commit to it today.
Not now.
We're
Not
also,
today.
I would say if you asked me that question, if you asked us that question like even 6 months ago, the answer was a hard no. Whereas now it's like, I don't know.
It's just a lot of work for the event.
It's a
lot.
It's a lot of work. I don't think either one of us want to ask us in August, dude.
You'd be like, I don't want to do this.
I'll discuss in August because at least because like right now I don't want to think about it. Like because the reality is for us to pull that off. Let's just say this year. So go as far out as you could.
Yeah.
December.
Right.
We'd have to start. We'd already have to be planning. We'd already have to be well into planning.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot more to put on a 500. When there's only 2 people and a couple support staff behind them, like it takes a whole lot of time to pull off a 400 or 500 person event.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe,
I know it's a lot of work. It was a good event though.
Yeah, it was.
Last one I went through before COVID
Yeah.
came down in Vegas.
So close to having a third one until COVID.
COVID.
And then it gave you the time to decide if you ever even wanted to do them.
Yeah, well, you can only lose so much money on marketing and deposits and stuff before you
Yeah.
get like, God, this.
What was your biggest what was the biggest win out of any of doing those events for you guys?
I think we
What's the
enjoy.
benefit?
It was the money, right?
curator. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Woo, we killed it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Events
we
are
just
hard.
enjoy being the curators of
Yeah.
content and putting
Love
people
that.
that maybe other people haven't heard in front of them and then letting them get their socks knocked off, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, there's some speakers that you need that you're like, people are familiar with this person, it'll sell the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But I think probably the more fun part for us is the people that nobody knows who they are.
For
and
sure.
then you leave that event and you're like, that was really good.
Yeah, I love
right?
that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I got a text in the last 30 days, 60 days from some. I'm not going to use their name in public, but like just randomly out of nowhere acknowledging the fact that the NLA Live really like set a path for this person into their business has just exploded today. Exploded because of that quote unquote stage
Yeah.
that we offered up. And
someone did something with it, right? How many
yeah,
people go to these
yeah.
events and they like absorb and they don't do anything, and so it's so cool. That's rewarding
Yeah.
to hear from
Yeah.
somebody like
that's
that.
awesome. And it's, again, like we end up like the thought process wasn't, we're going to go build EXP with this. We were doing it before we were at EXP. But the benefit is like some people do, like sometimes that's where the benefit shows up. Sometimes the benefit shows up in just better relationships or new relationships and referral partners. And you just never know.
You never know.
And as long as you're willing to let it be like that sort of open, then good stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Sofa King
Sofa
good.
King good.
It's a great wine.
It's one of my favorite.
Sofa King
chronic.
Bueno, yeah.
Chronic sellers.
Yes.
So let's
could you
put
get some pads on these chairs next time?
Seriously.
My butt
Sorry,
is
guys.
hurting
All
I
right.
about
know,
that.
mine too.
All right. We're done. On that note, we're done. We're out of here.
What's the biggest thing that we can do for you guys? What's the biggest coolest thing? What would be something awesome that anybody listening or we
next
can do for you
time
guys?
Steve decides to switch brokerages, just have him call us.
Just
first.
give us a quick heads up.
That's all I
that'd be great,
got.
Bert.
I drove all the way out here just to wait to deliver that line. So
These were probably the
mission
hardest
accomplished.
people to tell that I made the move. It
You
wasn't.
don't, I don't think you ever
Well, you don't actually told us.
So
We found out on Instagram like everyone
quite
else.
sure that qualifies.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
That or, yeah, for sure next time Steve changes brokerages or podcasts is the Kevin and Fred show.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Buy a
That's it.
ticket to the event we haven't planned yet.
NLA Live, whatever year, whatever. I don't even know.
I'll volunteer to speak.
2024.
Okay, cool.
I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. 2024.
Yeah.
2025.
Might be able to commit to
When
that.
they come off vacation.
If we can get 50, if we get 100 pre-sales, maybe.
Yeah. I just think it's so cool to get to sit
Bernie
here
will
and
buy
talk
10.
to you guys after all the years, just because, I've had the fortune of getting to work with you back in a time and just getting to see you guys and everything you've accomplished in the space, the influence, the impact. It's really cool.
Thank you.
And that was such
I'm
a
so
funky
proud
time,
of,
too.
I'm so proud of you guys.
Yeah.
It was, but it's like, I think about our relationship over 14 years. I mean, we were all freaking flat ass broke and trying to figure it out. And I think that's the
We
thing
made
that,
up some really good shit in those days.
kind of end on this note, right?
There was a time.
Yes. To end on this, though, is like, what would you encourage agents right now that are kind of, freaking out, right? We all did it early on when the market was way weird. And guess what? We were making a hell of a lot less money back then, right? It was like $1,000 per REO that we were making, right? And you'd have to do 30 of them to make 30 grand. So what advice would you have for the agent community right now that are kind of in freak out mode?
I'd say number one, go do some soul searching on why you sell real estate and why you believe in it and why others should believe in owning real estate. If you at any level question the ownership of real estate, it's going to be real tough to sell it in a down market. That'd be number one. Number two, I'd study the market. Not daily, that'll drive you nuts, but once a week, we look at Cromford, report here in Phoenix and go through it with our team for 15, 20 minutes and just like my job, I don't control the data or the market.
Right.
All I can do is interpret it. So I would take a look at what's going on once a week. And then right now I'd also like really bond together with other agents in my market. And I'd be hosting events and mastermind lunches and stuff like that just to ask what are people seeing, what's working, because maybe it's not as drastic as you think it is, or maybe it's actually happening a lot faster than you think it is, and you're not as in tune with it.
Yep.
Sometimes we can live in these little pockets in our different parts of the market where we don't feel it as much. So that'll be my 3 things.
Definitely.
Awesome. Believe in the ownership of real estate, look at your market stats at least weekly, and then like really bond together with other agents, because I think that's how we all survived, was a bunch of collaboration and sharing of ideas.
Yeah.
Totally agree. That was
really
awesome.
good.
Yeah. I don't know that I add much to that other than I think there's a lot of people that have gotten away with without the need for the skill.
Agreed.
And so if you don't have that yet and you know that you don't, like get on. Like if you, first of all, if you meet the other qualifiers that Fred just said, like you actually believe in ownership of real estate and you want to continue to do this, and you know that, hey, my skills aren't maybe where they need to be. And by the way, if you're not sure of that question, then further emphasizes this point of go get in rooms with other real estate agents, people that have been down the path that are maybe a little bit further along than you are, and then start learning.
And talk to people. Like, I love the idea of collaborating and creating groups, but there's so many people that are a phone call away that can provide you with so much intel. It's ridiculous. There's never a lack of resources, just a lack of resourcefulness.
For sure.
For sure. Last thing I'd say too, Steve, is like what, like when the market was the worst here in Phoenix in the last 20 years, like how many homes sold in the Phoenix area? What would your guess be? I haven't looked at it, but I think it's around 55 to 65,000.
Yeah, it was like 55 to 65,000.
Probably like 08 or so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the other thing would be like from an emotional standpoint, like because if you ask like if you're actually feeling the emotions, it would be just to go study the facts. Like how bad could it get? Oh, it could go from 110,000 sales maybe down to 55 to 60. Okay, is there still enough of the pie available to me if I sell real estate in Phoenix to go out and do business? So people do, even in the worst of markets, still 55 to 65,000 homes a year selling Phoenix. Okay, like that'd be a good information to know.
Right.
Because if you've never been in a market where it was going down and interest rates were rising, like maybe you think nobody buys. Maybe you think people only buy when stuff goes up. But if you actually went and studied the market, you might learn that, okay, more people buy when stuff goes up.
Right.
But motivation and life changes and everything else cause people to still buy and sell even when the market's down. Okay, that'd be good to know.
Like you and I talked about on that Zoom not too long ago. Like, don't believe the story.
Yeah.
Like, go find out the data.
What's going on. Yeah.
Go find the truth. Don't let the story. Don't let the story like just disguise the facts. Don't let that happen.
Yeah, and I think it goes back, right? Everybody wants to go back and revisit 2008, and they don't know all the facts,
the wrong
right?
question.
It really
It's
is.
the wrong question. It's the wrong stuff, and it's like those don't have anything to do with right now.
Yeah.
And they're so like, well, is that going to happen again? I don't think it is, right? And we're not going to be anywhere close to where it is.
Just a different environment that feels the same.
The banking environment itself wouldn't allow that stuff to go on.
Yeah.
No, they would
Like
correct
what
it a lot
happened when
faster.
you mentioned earlier, COVID, like it was all about keeping people in homes.
Yeah.
I think that would be the exact same response if the market dropped 20% tomorrow.
Well,
It'd be, how do we keep people in homes, not
Right.
how do we increase bailing on real estate.
Right. And they know how to turn it faster, right? I mean, they were so slow at turning it last time.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we had
It
to
was
fax short sale
crazy.
packages in. That probably didn't help. Like Kevin reminded me of that yesterday. He's like, no, we were faxing paperwork in. Like,
I know, like
the
42
technology difference in
page,
14 years, like how much better
Yeah.
decisions can be
Totally.
made with data and technology versus what we did back then.
No doubt.
Our
No
MCI
doubt.
calling card probably will never get used again.